Favorite memory of the Cardinal Theatre?
Of the Cardinal Theatre, I would say the very first day we walked in and there were dressing rooms. We've been setting up in classrooms and in the hallway, and we just thought, wow. Everyone was very quiet and very in awe of it all. It was very echoey the first day till we started moving everything in, but it was a beautiful space, and it was just spawned creativity for 30-some years. Love you all, Cardinals.
Favorite memory is working with like the cast of the two shows, children's shows I was in. Freshman year and senior year, I loved everyone I worked with on Around the World in 8 Plays, and Alice in Wonderland was an absolute joy to work with. I love everyone who I worked with. And those are some memories I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life.
My first year, freshman year, that would have been 2007, 2008, very long time. My best friends are Smiths, so that was my first show I did in class, so everything was great.
My favorite Cardinal memory has got to be after Seussical lighting. I had worked like 7 or 8 hours that day on it. Ben, Mrs. J, and we all like sat down and like ate pizza from Sbarro, and that was like the most healing moment I have ever felt in my life. I feel like that just really sums up my entire like theater tech experience.
So my favorite one was from the 2013 rendition of Anything Goes. After every like performance, when we were going out to like see all the guests, we'd all just start singing parts of the songs, and it was so nice just hearing all the little harmonies like throughout the big bustle of all the people just like congregating together.
My whole experience in the Cardinal Theatre, I was one of those people that, like, when I graduated, I had pretty much lived here. I never got into trouble because I was always at the theater. So I would say that just, like, the experience of being able to do everything from makeup to building the set to being in a show, like, I don't know anybody else that had an experience like they had at Thomas unless they went to Thomas, and I just treasure this, and I know that high school wouldn't have been as good if I didn't have this family.
Well, hi, I was one of the stage dads, and my favorite memory was from Peter Pan being back behind the scenes, standing on a stepladder and jumping off the stepladder to fly the kids up under the ropes during the performance. Have not jumped off a stepladder since.
Hi, I'm Sandy Buckley, Ryan Buckley's mom, and my favorite musical was surprisingly 1776. I thought, oh, it's history, it's going to be boring, but actually it was like the best musical I've seen at the theater and probably ever, so I really enjoyed that. And Ryan was the bad guy. I didn't know he could be that mean, but thankfully that was just acting. Sometimes your son shows up in a red dress and cropped off tank tops or no shirts, whatever. But it's all in good fun, and it's turned him into the person he is today.
I think the most emotionally impactful show as an actor for me was probably the Laramie Project. That was such a great opportunity, and was just such, I mean, I don't know, beforehand it really, I mean, the shows have been great, but it had really just been like, you know, it's mostly kind of a, you know, there's a very fun tone to it, very kind of lighthearted, kind of more casual tone of the material. So this was more serious, much more serious, and it just, it was an entirely different experience, and it really just, the camaraderie that cast had, and just how close we got is something that's always going to stick with me. On a more lighthearted note, The Odd Couple was hilarious. Every cast had such a strong sense of camaraderie, and I love being a part of that. And then also getting to see my sister Kate is now in shows, and getting to hear her talk about that has been really nice.
My favorite memory isn't a memory of like me in a show. My favorite memory is me watching Mr. Roberts, which is this hilarious show about this U.S. Navy ship, and there are palm trees involved. There's a bunch of it's a wild show, but I think one thing that like I saw in that show that I've never seen them ever do again was they brought a live goat, like a baby goat, into the like Cardinal Theatre, and that, you know, I think I was in like first grade or second grade, but like seeing that was just like, wow, like they really brought this whole thing to life. The immersion was amazing.
My favorite Cardinal memory was probably hanging out with my friends backstage during Urinetown, just laughing and taking pictures backstage. It was just always so fun.
My favorite Cardinal memory was probably during 1776 rehearsal when I jumped up on a chair trying to stick the landing, but the chair slid out from underneath me and I landed straight on my back right in the middle of rehearsal.
My favorite Cardinal memory is when I had to pull a splinter out of Molly Geiger's leg during competition.
That sounds painful.
Yeah, I don't think it felt too bad.
So I would say, since English isn't my first language and I had the great honor of being in the last senior show here in the Cardinal Theatre, I had to go on stage after a scene change, and I had to say one phrase that was, I think the phrase was, well, nobody of us agreed on it, and you can see I'm still struggling with it because I absolutely screwed it up. I butchered it. I said something like, nobody, well, of us, and then I stopped, and then I awkwardly thought, but that went very fast in my head, and I kind of tried to correct myself, but I still said something like, agreed to it, nobody. And so that was an awkward moment, but we continued the show and it ended up being a great, fun experience.
My favorite Cardinal memory is when our second period rep class did Shakespeare Bridge, and I had to hit a mannequin head with a golf club, and when I hit it on stage, it broke right in half, and the whole crowd was like going crazy because I broke this mannequin on stage. And I was a sophomore, and all these seniors were like, yeah, because I broke this head. So, yeah, that's my favorite memory.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but it makes me giggle. This one time in All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, the Blue Group was singing a song about like how life is more than a title of your career. And we were doing this dance move, and Chase's glasses fell off, and we all started laughing really hard. But we weren't laughing really hard, but we started giggling a little, but it kind of brightened up the actual song a little bit, so I thought it was really fun.
My favorite Cardinal memory has nothing to do with the theater. Me and Mrs. Hopton and Scott Foreman were walking back from the annex, and Scott suddenly got a pebble in his eye. And it came out of nowhere, and Mrs. Hopton laughed at him for about 15 minutes while we were in the parking lot. Oh my God. And I laughed so hard at Mrs. Hopton laughing at Scott, and the entire time Scott was like, this isn't funny! I have a pebble in my eye! That's it, go ahead!
I was expecting sympathy from a teacher.
It was hilarious. It's a hard thing.
So in The Nerd, we were going to have one last dress rehearsal before the show opened. The problem was we had already had like a soft opening for like some middle schoolers in the morning. So Miss Hopkins said, you don't need another rehearsal, you're done. And we sort of insisted, no, we want one more practice to go. And so that night, no one took it seriously because we already had our opening. And so one character is supposed to come out covered in cottage cheese in his costume at the end of the show and say, can someone please explain to me why I'm covered in cottage cheese? And Jimmy didn't feel the need to actually go out covered in cottage cheese because this is one rehearsal. So instead, he walks out literally holding it and says, can someone please explain to me why I'm holding cottage cheese? And everyone bursts out laughing hysterically, and I have the next line, I cannot possibly say it. We were just all doubled over in laughter. We just stopped rehearsal cold dead at that point, just take a whole bunch of photos and laugh. And Miss Hoffman woke up at that point from the audience. And she had also been bored earlier. So it was a pretty magical moment.
My favorite Cardinal memory comes from my first musical. It wasn't my first show in the program, it was my first musical. I was a junior. It was my first year doing shows. I kind of came out of nowhere, which was fun. I was Archibald Craven in The Secret Garden, and at the end of The Secret Garden, Archibald is basically telling Mary that they're all going to be a family together now. She's being adopted. This is your garden, and there's a big swell in the music, and we all could tell. the actors on the stage, we were looking at each other in a way that we could sort of feel this thing building, that I had it correct, that I was in the pocket. And the timing was working out. It was working, and the conductor in the pit was getting excited for me. And Grace Plimpton, who was playing Mary, was getting excited for me. It looked like Mary was getting excited because she realized she was adopted. But it was Grace getting excited for me, and she ran across the stage and gave me a big hug.
Okay, this is actually quite embarrassing, but I was in this show, To Kill a Mockingbird, and I remember, I'm not going to name off the other person, told me I needed to cry. And so they were like, just put some Vicks Vapor Rub underneath your eyes so you can cry. And I was like, okay, great. And I'm supposed to come running out on the stage, and in the middle of it, I just can't see, and I'm crying, and everyone thought I was giving an emotional performance. No, I just couldn't see, because I had Vicks Vapor Rub in my eyes. So yes, that was my favorite Cardinal memory from my dramatic scene, and it was all because of Vicks Vapor Rub. But yeah, that was it. Yay!
Awesome. My favorite Cardinal memory is being on the stage and getting ready for big productions and working with Mrs. Hopton. I remember being backstage and stuff and having to go get stuff for props and things, and Mrs. Hopton would hand me her credit card, and I'd go to the store and sign her name. It was always fun learning how to sign Bronwyn. So, love the theater program here. All the best in the future. Break a leg.
I was basically the narrator for a scene called English Made Simple for All the Timing, and I was working with two people the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. But with the two of them, we were actually in this hallway trying to run through it a few times before we went home for Thanksgiving break. A time where the two characters share a moment. The guy was looking up at the ceiling while the girl was looking down at the floor because they couldn't make eye contact with each other without cracking up. And that was like one of my favorite memories from that show.
My favorite Cardinal memory is for the first time during the main stage musical, going into the Cardinal Theatre before the first show, and as a team building exercise, having the lights shut off and doing a group singing of Bohemian Rhapsody. Really got everyone into the mood of theater and showed how great a family it was that it stayed being for the next 4 years. So that's our favorite memory.
My favorite Cardinal memory. I'm at a legitimate loss for words. There are a lot of memories that I feel like they link to a greater narrative, a greater story. Like, I remember my interview process was with Bronwyn and Rebecca and Gino and Jim and Susan and Chloe and Daria. Like, it was a panel of like students and parents and faculty members and administration and Bronwyn. I remember doing a demo lesson with Tatum and Chloe. I remember Tatum touring the Cardinal in the booth with me. Like, that memory is a very prominent memory. The first memory of when we first turned on the sprinkler system for Singing in the Rain, and everybody was just like looking at it kind of in awe. The moment when we performed Singing in the Rain and the audience at the end of the show when it was still raining and the stage had cleared, the audience going up to the apron and like being like, how did they do that? That's a good one. Zombie Prom was an insane memory. Every final scene night, every cabaret. I don't know. Like, there's just so many. There's so many memories. It's a bigger narrative. I can't pick one. They all link together. They're all very important, and I have to write an entire memoir to give it all justice. Thanks.
I think my favorite memory is this night. I really do. And planning for this night. It was just such a wonderful celebration to go out with a bang, and I am so grateful everyone came to celebrate a space that has connected so many people and brought so many people the same magic.
Quick tour of the shop. We weren't able to get in here the other day, and it looks like it's pretty empty. Lots of great sets were built in here.